He said it like he was proud of himself, like selling my year's work for $80,000 was an act of mercy instead of theft. And everyone clapped. I just stood there, coffee cooling in my hand, watching his mouth move as if I were trapped behind glass. He told the team how we had managed to pull the company back from the edge, how our proprietary backend was the reason a new client had come on board. Except there was no we. That backend was my project. Nights, weekends, insomnia, and he'd just announced he'd sold it to keep the lights on. No one knew the silence that followed felt like static in my skull. He clicked to the next slide. Revenue numbers, graphs, smiling stock photos. My name wasn't anywhere. He called it Project Phoenix. I called it mine. People laughed when he joked about creative accounting. The HR manager wiped her eyes from laughing too hard. My stomach felt like it was full of sand. I remember thinking, don't make a scene. Not yet. I joined Kessler Analytics 2 years ago, one of those small SaaS firms that pretended open floor plans made them family. Back then, there were 17 of us. By this meeting, we were down to 11. The coffee machine rattled like a dying printer. Payroll had been late twice that quarter. Everyone knew we were bleeding. So when he said he'd closed a miracle sale, they wanted to believe him. I opened Slack under the table. The message was still pinned. My code commit from 02 a.m. last month. Repo, Spectre Engine Private, time-stamped. My initials, my property. He moved on to next steps. Support hours, deliverables, Q&A. Then he said something that froze me. We'll need Alex to handle all client integration personally. He's the one who knows the engine best. That was me. He looked right at me when he said it, eyes steady, smile polite. That's when I knew he thought he'd won. When the meeting ended, I stayed behind, pretending to scroll through notes. The smell of burnt coffee, stale donuts, someone's nervous cologne. He came over, that practiced hand-on-shoulder gesture that meant, don't make this awkward. You're a hero, man, he said softly. This deal keeps everyone employed. I said nothing. He didn't notice my jaw lock. I know it's technically your code, he added, lowering his voice, but we're a team. We share credit, right? That word, technically, was a blade. I wanted to throw every receipt at his face. The carve-out clause in my contract, the prototype registration email to HR, the build logs with my Git key. Instead, I just said, right. He patted my back like I was a dog he'd fed scraps to. At my desk, I opened the invoice folder in our shared drive. There it was. Client, Ryden Systems. Amount, $80,000. Vendor, Lightpath Solutions. Lightpath, not us. A reseller. I checked the metadata, uploaded by him 2 days before the meeting. The statement of work listed Phoenix 1.2 as deliverable. My repo's last tag was Spectre 1.2. He hadn't even bothered to rename the build properly. I scrolled to the signature block. Authorized representative, Kessler Analytics. His name. He'd sold it through a middleman, masking the IP trail, like it had always belonged to the company. For a long minute, all I could hear was the faint hum of servers behind the glass wall. Someone dropped a pen. It sounded like thunder. I minimized everything, opened a blank email, and started typing to myself. Summary, 10:47 a.m., Friday. Kessler announced sale of Project Phoenix, which matches my pre-existing Spectre engine, CHR carve-out. Evidence, repo hash, F48 bsvin, version 1.2 identical to mine. Sale amount $80K via Lightpath Solutions. I saved it as draft, then copied the entire thing to my personal inbox. Encrypted. If he wanted to play this quietly, I could too. That afternoon, the office smelled like victory. People were booking lunches, planning bonuses that didn't exist yet. I watched them through my monitor reflection. Smiles, relief, ignorance. In another window, I opened the old onboarding PDF I'd given HR my first week. As Section 7, Employee-Owned Intellectual Property. I'd even listed Spectre Engine as an example. The clause said, projects created outside paid hours and without company equipment remain the property of the employee unless separately assigned in writing. No separate assignment existed. When I left the office, he was in his glass cubicle on a call, laughing. Yeah, we got it covered. My guy's loyal. Outside, the November air felt like wet metal. I stood by my car, phone in hand, and stared at the email draft. The streetlights flickered on one by one, slow and deliberate, like they were thinking it over for me. I didn't hit send. Not yet. You don't shout fire when the arsonist still has the keys. You wait until he leaves the building. That night, I opened my home laptop, the same one I'd used for every build, and started pulling everything into a clean evidence folder. Commits, invoices, Slack logs, even the late-night photos I'd taken of the prototype running on my dining table. Each file felt like a heartbeat. I didn't sleep. By 3 a.m., the folder was complete, labeled simply, Spectre Truth. Tomorrow, I'd start digging into LightPath. If my boss thought selling my work would save the company, he was about to find out what it cost to underestimate the guy who built it. He didn't ask me to sign anything that night. He waited until Monday morning, when the office smelled like stale celebration and burned toast, and slid a one-page acknowledgement across my keyboard like it was nothing. Just to align terminology, he said, tone soft, palm hovering as if blessing me. Acknowledgement of what? That Phoenix was the same thing I'd called Spectre for a year, that it originated within the scope of my employment, that I consent to provide reasonable support. 1 page, 3 landmines. I didn't touch the paper. Where did LightPath come from? I asked. Oh, them? He smiled as if the question were a compliment. Trusted reseller. They handle billing when clients don't want to onboard a new vendor for one-off projects. Reduces friction, reduces paper trails, he meant. After he walked away, I opened the state business registry. LightPath Solutions, LLC. Registered agent, a strip mall mailbox. Manager, C. Fisk. I checked LinkedIn. Fisk wasn't a stranger. He was in a college photo with my boss, arms around each other in front of a keg, both wearing fraternity hoodies that looked identical from across the room. Their connection history was scrubbed, but the follows were the same. SaaS vendors, founder podcasts, a VC who'd once retweeted my boss's hackathon win, trusted reseller. Payroll hit late again that week, not by much, just 2 days, but late enough to feel like a warning. Slack bloomed with jokes, pretending not to sting. Guess Phoenix didn't rise fast enough. Can someone sell my Jira tickets too? The jokes became quiet when my boss walked by. He cracked a fresh seltzer like a starter pistol and asked if I could jump on a quick call at 4 Asmart to talk integration timelines. I said yes, because I always said yes, because I needed this job until I didn't. That night, my father called from the kitchen table of the house I grew up in, breath raspy from the flu that always turned into something worse with him. Doc says the new inhaler isn't covered, he said, trying to make it sound like a weather report. We'll figure it out, I said, and stared at my checking account while the water boiled for ramen. Numbers don't lie. People do. Back at the office, I built a timeline. Commits from May, photographs from July, a Stripe receipt for cloud credits, charged to my personal card in August. Nominal, but undeniable. Then the contract, the carve-out. It lived in a dusty PDF named Onboarding Packet 2019 Final. Section 7.3 wasn't just text. It referenced an attachment, my pre-existing IP list with Spectre Engine codename next to a short description. Location of files, personal Git repo, private, dev hardware, personal MacBook Pro, hours, evenings, weekends. I had emailed the attachment to HR on day 1. Their reply had been a thumbs-up emoji and received thanks. Flippant at the time. Priceless now. I pulled the raw file I'd archived on an external drive and computed its hash. HR's copy matched byte for byte. No edits, no ambiguity. Mine. The client's name, Ryden Systems, sat in my head like a weight. not a startup. Old money industrial software, the kind of company that survives recessions by selling six-figure maintenance contracts to cities and utilities. If they thought they were buying a company-owned product with support baked in, they weren't just mistaken. They were exposed. If the engine broke, they'd be holding a contract with a reseller who didn't own the rights, a vendor who couldn't legally promise updates, and an integration plan that hinged on me volunteering my weekends. I didn't want to blow them up. I wanted the truth in daylight. So I started where I always start. Logs. My code doesn't just run, it tattles. Spectre's trial build embedded a watermark, 3 bytes in a config string that wrote to a hidden endpoint the first time the API initialized in a new environment. That call had a unique hash. I'd seen it 100 times in testing. If Raiden installed Phoenix 1.2 anywhere, it would ping home with a timestamp in the server's public IP. I opened the dashboard I'd built for myself and waited. At 3:12 a.m., a new initialization appeared from an IP range registered to a Raiden data center. First boot, proof they were already deploying what he sold. By noon the next day, the pressure started to harden into shape. He called me into a glass box with HR present. Our HR manager, kind eyes and corporate lanyard, folded her hands like a Sunday school teacher. "We need to confirm expectations," she said. "The client purchased a solution with premium support. That means you're the point of contact for 2 months. Nights and weekends may be necessary at first." My voice stayed level. "There's no assignment on file for Spectre." She blinked. He didn't. "Alex," he said, patient, paternal, "you know how this works. You built it here, on our time, with our resources." I looked at his monitor behind him. His desktop reflected in the glass just enough to read the last 3 file names. Phoenix SA PDF, Raiden integration XLSX, assignment template .docx. "With respect," I said and slid my printout across the table. I documented the opposite on day 1. HR took the paper, skimming. He didn't touch it. He kept his eyes on me like negotiators do when they pretend they're listening. "We're all on the same side," he said. "Nobody's trying to take anything away from you. We're just asking you to be a team player during a crunch." The word crunch made me think of the night I slept on the office couch during a legacy migration, and he sent a pizza that never arrived. "I'll support whatever the contract promises," I said. "I won't support promises you made without rights." Something shifted under his face, just a millimeter of impatience, like a string pulled too tight. "Can I have a minute with Alex?" he asked HR. She nodded and slipped out, closing the door softly. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, mentor pose. "I'm going to level with you. We needed this sale. People have mortgages. This is bigger than your paperwork. I'm signing your name next to a lead engineer on the case study. You'll get exposure." He smiled, and I watched him choose his next words. "Also, I've got discretion on mid-year bonuses. Help me, and I'll help you. Otherwise, I can't protect you out from what this looks like to the board. Hoarding company IP, dragging your feet on deliverables. Insubordination. You're too smart to make it messy." It wasn't a threat, not out loud. It was the kind of future he knew I'd picture. HR email, performance plan. Slow bleed to termination. He expected the fear to do the work. I surprised both of us by feeling nothing. Fear is a fog machine. Facts are a window. Back at my desk, I opened the reseller invoice again and traced the path of money. Lightpath invoiced Raiden for $80,000. Our accounts receivable ledger showed $73,000 are expected from Lightpath. $7,000 shaved for reseller margin. I searched our CRM. No reseller agreement on file. No legal review. No purchase order. Just a PDF and a prayer. The team Slack turned sour that afternoon when support tickets started coming in from an unfamiliar domain. Phoenix API not respecting rate limits. Phoenix import job stalls on large CSV. Each ticket assigned to me like a sticky note. I answered the ones I could without touching what wasn't mine to promise. Workaround, set batch size to 5,000. Known issue, patch ETA unknown. He pinged me within seconds. Tone softer. Keep them happy. I typed and deleted 3 replies before answering, acknowledged. That night, the dashboard logged a second initialization from a disaster recovery subnet. Ryden was serious, and if they were serious, they'd have a master services agreement somewhere with warranties, representations, indemnification, the bones of a contract that hates surprises. I couldn't see Ryden's MSA, but I knew our own template by heart. Section 9, IP warranty. Section 10, non-infringement. Section 14, termination for cause, including misrepresentation. I needed a link between Lightpath and him that wasn't a keg photo. I found it in the dumbest place, calendar metadata. He'd shared a Google Meet link for our Phoenix kickoff call. The invite's guest list included a consultant named Chris F. with a Lightpath email. His calendar name wasn't anonymized. The profile photo was a cropped version of the fraternity picture. People forget to lie in their calendars. By Friday, I had a stack of small, sharp truths. The carve-out, the attachment hash, the watermark pings from Ryden's servers, the reseller margin, the calendar breadcrumb. None of it was dramatic. All of it was boring. Boring is how you win. He stopped by my desk at 6:18 p.m., jacket over his shoulder, small talk about weekend plans. "We good?" he asked, and tapped the unsigned acknowledgement page on my keyboard with 2 fingers. "Let's make it official Monday." "I'll review it," I said. He nodded, satisfied. "You're doing the right thing," he said, as if he were the one who'd taught me right and wrong. When he left, I waited 5 minutes and then walked to HR. The office was mostly dark, the kind of quiet that makes every printer tick, sound like a spike in your pulse. The HR manager looked surprised, but not unfriendly. I didn't argue. I asked for a copy of my personnel file. She hesitated, checked a policy binder, and printed it. There it was, mid-stack, my day 1 email stapled to section 7.3 with my signature and hers. She'd written, "Receive 9:42 a.m." in blue ink and stamped it with the date. I took the copy home and, for the first time all week, slept. In the morning, sunlight cut a bright line across my desk and landed on the page where my project's code name sat in clean, unambiguous type. The hash values matched. The date stamp matched. The signature ink was the same shade as the note she'd written on my emergency contact form. You don't need a speech when the paper talks for you. By Monday morning, the air in the office felt wrong. Quiet, but not calm. The kind of silence that comes after something breaks and before someone notices. My boss wasn't at his desk. His chair faced the window, jacket still draped over the back. I sat down, opened my laptop, and waited for his first move. It came at 9:11 a.m., an email, subject line. Friendly reminder, assignment form. The body was a single sentence. Please sign the attached document so we can finalize with legal. We're under pressure from Ryden. No greeting, no signature block, just pressure disguised as process. I didn't open the attachment. Instead, I scrolled through the Slack integration channel. Overnight, there'd been 8 new tickets from Ryden's engineers, all marked urgent. But what caught my attention wasn't the bugs. It was a line buried in one of the tickets. Lightpath told us Alex is handling ongoing architecture support. We'll need access to his repo, Lightpath told them, not our company. Lightpath, the reseller, was giving orders on my behalf, which meant my name was already being used as collateral. That's when I realized the leverage wasn't the code. It was the truth about who owned it. I opened my encrypted folder, Spectre, Truth, and added a new file, screenshots of every Ryden ticket, timestamped. Then I started building what I called the chain. Step 1, version control. I exported the entire Git history of Spectre, including the commits, timestamps, and author signatures. Each commit was cryptographically signed with my GPG key, a digital fingerprint that tied every line of code back to me personally. Step 2, the notarized logs. Months ago, I'd uploaded snapshots of my repo hashes to a public blockchain timestamping service. Back then, it was just a geeky way to protect myself. Now, it was a loaded gun. Step 3. The paper trail. My carve-out clause, HR confirmation, and every email with my boss referring to Spectre as your engine. I built a binder of digital receipts, not dramatic, but dense, each page boring enough to be believable. By noon, I had a complete package. Proof of creation, ownership, and misrepresentation. All I needed now was to aim it. I didn't go to legal, I went to Ryden. The trick was to talk like a professional, not a whistleblower. I called the project manager listed on one of the tickets, a woman named Dana Lee. Her tone was polite, but tired. She sounded like someone who'd been sold confidence and delivered chaos. "Hey Dana, it's Alex from Kessler. I wanted to touch base about Phoenix, the back-end engine." "Oh, thank God," she said. "We've been waiting for your response. Lightpath said you'd be leading support." I let that hang for a moment. "I just wanted to clarify something about ownership," I said. "I don't think you were told the full story." There was a pause. "Ownership?" "Yes. The product you received was built before my employment agreement covered internal IP. It's technically registered as independent work. That means the license transfer may not be valid, and the support arrangement could expose your company to warranty issues." Dana went silent. Then, "Are you saying we don't actually have the rights to use it?" "I'm saying the paperwork you got from Lightpath may not hold up. I'm not accusing anyone. I just don't want you blindsided later. If you review your MSA, Section 9.1, you'll see a clause about misrepresentation of IP origin. You should probably loop in your legal team before integration goes further." She thanked me, her voice tight. 10 minutes later, my Slack exploded. He'd found out. "Did you contact the client?" "Yes." "Why would you do that? That's a breach of protocol." "No," I typed. "That's compliance." I saw the 3 dots bubble, then disappear. An hour later, HR called me in again. Same conference room, same 2 small water bottles, same script. "We've been informed of communication with a client." "Without approval," HR began. I looked at him. His smile had evaporated. His jaw worked like he was chewing glass. "I was asked technical questions," I said. I answered truthfully. He leaned forward. "You're creating liability, Alex. You're endangering contracts we need." "I'm not the one who signed them under false pretenses." The HR rep's hand froze halfway to her notebook. He exhaled, long and slow. "Okay," he said finally. "Let's be adults. You want recognition? We'll draft a proper assignment. You'll get a $5,000 bonus and your name on the patent filing. That's fair." "Fair. A $5,000 hush payment for an $80,000 sale of my work." I looked him in the eye. "You don't have the right to file a patent on my code." His smile cracked, just slightly. "Then I guess you don't have the right to work here much longer." The threat landed like a dead thing, heavy, obvious, inelegant. I stood. "That's your call," I said, and left the paper on the table. Outside, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, but clarity. I'd seen his endgame now, corner me into signing or paint me as insubordinate until HR had cause to cut me. But he didn't understand that I'd already stepped outside his game. That evening, I composed a message to 2 addresses, the audit chair listed on Kessler's website and the company's outside counsel who'd handled their previous IP dispute. Subject line, "Urgent, unauthorized sale of unassigned IP." I attached my entire binder, carve-out, blockchain timestamps, invoice trail, watermark logs, emails, calendar screenshots, and HR confirmation. The last paragraph was simple. "This email constitutes formal notice that Kessler Analytics has sold a product under false claims of ownership. I am the original author of the Spectre engine, licensed under no agreement with Kessler. Evidence attached. I am available for verification and cooperation in good faith." I didn't copy my boss. I didn't warn him. Then I scheduled a call with Ryden's legal counsel, the one Dana had looped in. We spoke for 45 minutes. They were calm, methodical, professional, the kind of calm that makes you realize they're about to move fast. They thanked me for my transparency. Asked for one thing, the notarized timestamps. I sent them immediately. The next morning, my badge didn't work. The receptionist smiled apologetically. IT issue, maybe? She said too gently. Upstairs, my desk was boxed. My boss was in his glass office, talking on the phone. When he saw me, he turned his back. Security approached. They said you're on administrative leave, the guard mumbled, uncomfortable. I nodded, picked up my folder, the original, not the copy, and walked out. The sky outside was that pale winter blue that makes everything look sterile. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Grant? The voice said. It was Ryden's counsel. We've completed our review. Your documentation checks out. We'll be sending a formal rescission notice to Kessler this afternoon. You should expect contact from their board shortly. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not relief, not revenge, just clarity. By sunset, 3 things happened in quick succession. Ryden's rescission letter went public on their client portal. Kessler's website went offline for maintenance, and I got an email from an unfamiliar address, legalkessleranalytics.com. Subject line, immediate response requested, audit inquiry. My boss hadn't answered my email, but the company's lawyers had, and that meant the real game was about to begin. They didn't call me back to the office. They called me to the boardroom. 3 days after my suspension, a formal letter arrived by courier. You are requested to attend a special session of the Board of Kessler Analytics, Wednesday, 10 a.m. It wasn't phrased as optional, but it wasn't an invitation either. My lawyer, a friend from college who specialized in tech contracts, told me to go. Bring only copies, he said, and say as little as possible. When I walked in, the air felt overfiltered and wrong, like everything had been scrubbed too clean. 6 people sat around the long table. The audit chair, the CFO, 2 directors I'd only seen at company parties, outside counsel, and my boss, looking like he hadn't slept. His usual sharp navy suit was wrinkled at the collar, his eyes rimmed red. The nameplate in front of him said, Chief Operations Officer, but the shine was gone. The audit chair motioned for me to sit. Mr. Grant, she said evenly, thank you for coming. We've reviewed the materials you provided. We need to clarify a few points. My boss spoke before she could continue. This is absurd, he said. Alex has been unstable for weeks. He's misrepresenting the facts. The Spectre codebase was developed on company equipment, under our roadmap, with our resources. He's trying to extort the company. I let him finish. Then I slid a printed sheet across the table. A notarized timestamp of my Git hash from 11 months before I joined Kessler. Underneath, I placed a printout of my onboarding carve-out clause. Section 7.3 circled in blue, the HR signature right below it. The CFO leaned forward. Is this accurate? HR's director, who'd been silent until now, nodded. Yes, she said quietly. We have the same document on file. He opened his mouth, closed it again. The audit chair tapped her pen. Mr. Kessler, you were aware of this documentation? He stammered something about verbal understandings, team collaboration, implied assignment. Legal cut him off. Did you, or did you not, authorize the sale of software to Ryden Systems that originated outside Kessler's intellectual property portfolio? He went pale. It was to save payroll. We needed cash flow. That's not an answer. Outside counsel opened a folder. We've already received Ryden's formal rescission notice. They have invoked their misrepresentation clause under Section 9.1 of the Master Services Agreement. The sale is void. Funds will be returned within 10 business days. Silence, the kind that hums. Then the chair turned to me. Mr. Grant, your claim of authorship and ownership appears well documented. However, we need to discuss remediation. Ryden wants continued access under a legitimate license. Would you be open to a direct licensing agreement between your entity and Kessler, allowing them to maintain support continuity? I had already prepared for that question. My new LLC was registered 48 hours ago. Spectre Systems, LLC. I'd spent half of my severance on filing fees. Yes, I said, at fair market rate, and with independent control of updates. Her pen moved fast. Noted. My boss tried again, voice cracking. You can't do that. That's our client. Correction, the CFO said sharply. That was Ryden's choice. You voided their contract by misrepresentation. You signed the sale through an unapproved vendor with undisclosed personal ties. She slid another document forward. A LightPath invoice showing his friend's name. We've already confirmed the LLC registration lists you as a minority partner. That's self-dealing. Fraud, if proven. He slumped back, face drained of color. The meeting ended with words like termination for cause and pending review. I wasn't asked to leave first. He was. Security waited outside the door. The sound of his footsteps down the hall was the quietest thunder I'd ever heard. After that, everything happened fast. Kessler's statement to employees came that afternoon. Effective immediately, COO Daniel Kessler has resigned following findings of procedural misconduct. Interim leadership to be announced. Internally, people started messaging me from personal accounts. You were right. I'm sorry I didn't speak up. They're saying you saved the company from a lawsuit. I didn't reply to most. I didn't want revenge. I wanted rest. 2 weeks later, Kessler signed a clean licensing deal with Spectre Systems. $95,000 annual recurring fee, plus royalties for client expansions. Ryden re-signed under the new structure, this time with me directly listed as vendor. When the first wire hit my new business account, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like oxygen. I used some of it to pay my father's medical debt in full. The rest I left untouched. Months passed. Kessler stabilized under new management, smaller, humbler, alive. I didn't go back. Instead, I started contracting, quietly. A few of my old teammates joined me on side projects. No marketing, no pitch decks, just work done cleanly, honestly. Then one morning, an email arrived from Dana Lee at Ryden. We've been impressed by your professionalism through all this. We're looking to expand the Spectre, integration into 2 new divisions. Can we set up a meeting with your team? My team. I stared at those words for a long time. That afternoon, I joined the video call. Dana smiled through the camera, the same calm eyes that had once heard my warning. Glad you're still in business, Alex, I smiled back. This time, everything's above board. When the call ended, I closed the laptop and leaned back, staring at the faint reflection of my face in the screen. The man looking back wasn't angry anymore, just steady. Some people think karma comes like lightning, loud, immediate, burning everything it touches. But it doesn't. It comes quietly, like the click of a lock you forgot you changed yourself. And when the door finally opens, no one else needs to know how long you were holding the key.